Halo is a franchise that needs no introduction, so I won't. Now that every Halo game is on PC, aside from Halo 5, and I've made a video on every one of the mainline Halo games, I can finally make this video. As a quick note, I made a playlist of all my Halo content. This includes all my analysis videos and reviews. This is a solid 4 to 5 hours of Halo content. This also includes some Halo mods like SPV3 and even Cursed Halo. If you want to check that out, check the link down below in the video information. I'm also going to be linking every individual review in the top right as I talk about these games. Okay, some criteria. This video is going to be talking about just the campaign. The multiplayer plays no factor in this ranking. I have already made a video ranking the Halo multiplayers. If you want to check that out, check the top right. This was before Halo Infinite came out, so if you are curious where I put Halo Infinite, I would put it just below Halo 3, as in I think Halo 3 is better. But as for this list, it's pretty straightforward. The best stories and the most complete game gets the best rankings. And of course, this is also partly subjective, so do try to keep in mind that my opinion may not line up perfectly with your opinion, and that's perfectly okay. And before I get to the list, I need to thank today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is how you know that I'm a YouTuber. It's a NordVPN sponsorship. And that's a good thing, because NordVPN provides a service that is beneficial to everyone. At this point, we already know of the security advantages of a VPN. NordVPN blocks malware-ridden websites, secures your browsing traffic without affecting speed, it has a next-generation encryption, and most importantly, if you're streaming, blocks DDoS attacks. I mean, that's important whether you're streaming or not, but if you're streaming, doubly so. But we've heard all this before. What can it do for you just for regular gaming? Well, what if you want to buy a game that's been censored in your country or not even sold in your country anymore? What if your country has absurdly high game prices and you want to take advantage of sales in other countries? What if you, a person that lives in North America, wants to play with your friends, a person that lives in Europe, or another friend that lives in Australia, but they're playing on a region-restricted server? You can get around this issue by simply changing your online location in a few clicks with NordVPN. There's over 5,100 different servers in 60 different countries. If you want to try NordVPN for yourself, check that link down below in the video information, or go to nordvpn.com/Jarek, or just use my code Jarek at checkout to get a 2-year deal plus 1 month free, a 73% discount. As always, I want to give a huge thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this channel. They really do offer a service that benefits everyone involved. And with that said, let's get back to the video. Quickly, before I tell you my list, I want you to pause this video and leave your list down below. There is a reason I am asking. In very last place, this is no surprise to anyone, it's Halo 5. Halo 5's campaign seemed to have absolutely no direction, which is very odd because its multiplayer was focused on a specific thing and quite good. How you can have a game with such a good multiplayer and such a bad campaign is baffling. 343 really expected all of us to somehow know who these characters were that only showed up in the books. On top of that, the story in the trailer didn't even happen in the game. The story is all over the place, with some truly terrible writing. The story was so bad that Halo Infinite chucked out almost every plot point except for the one involving Cortana. And that's impressive when you consider that Halo 5 ended on a to be continued. They literally ignored a cliffhanger because the story was so bad. The gameplay itself, unfortunately, is not much better. While the gunplay and movement feels great, the maps weren't really tailored for this movement. The result was that the campaign was a bit of a slog, doing the same thing over and over and over again, and unfortunately that same thing wasn't very fun. The last 2 levels alone feel like they last for 5 hours, which again is impressive because that's the length of the whole game. Next up is another 343 campaign, Halo 4. Now, Halo 4 isn't truly bad campaign-wise. Multiplayer it's awful, but the campaign, it's okay. The gameplay didn't feel like a repetitive slog, but it didn't really have any heights that we usually see in a Halo campaign. I can play it without feeling like I want to die or I'm having a terrible time, but I'm also not really being enthralled. It all just sort of blends together and I tend to not remember much. In Halo 4's defense though, I did remember quite a few story moments.
To surrender that AI! No, sir.
I mean, yes, there's that one, but more so this one.
Cortana.
Chase, it's...
Brutal. The next 2 for me are kind of difficult to rank, but I think I would have to put Halo 3 ODST. What I will say is I firmly believe ODST by far has the best soundtrack out of any Halo game. There is nothing quite like walking around the city of New Mombasa completely at night all alone with this jazz playing in the background. But for that tone they nailed, the story doesn't quite fit. This is where the Covenant attacked on Earth. I expected this to be a really dark story. What I first assumed was going on is that I was going around figuring out how all my squad mates died, when in all reality, they were all fine. Even the guy that got stabbed in the chest with a hammer, totally okay. And there's even a romance story in this, for some reason. I don't know why ODST got turned into a Disney story, but I always felt it was out of place for the tone of the game. As for the gameplay itself, well, it was more Halo 3. Which kind of disappointed me. It's not bad, far from it is quite good. However, if I'm playing as an ODST, I expect something a little bit more than just the same as if I was playing like a Spartan. Stamina replaces the shields, but it acts the same, and I'm a little squishier, but not really anything else has been changed. Again, the atmosphere and music is definitely the selling point of this game, but nothing else quite clicked with me. It's good, but I don't think it's quite at that top level of Halo games. Next on the list is going to be Halo Reach. This one I know is going to ruffle some jimmies because people that like Halo Reach really like Halo Reach. Unfortunately, I've never been one of those people. Reach is a game that I thought was pretty okay all the way through. Nowhere in the game was truly bad, but again, nowhere in the game was truly great either. That is aside from the very last level where you're holding out until you eventually die. That's about it. I guess my disappointment with Halo Reach is that they really focus specifically on this one Spartan squad. They didn't really show the whole planet truly being decimated by the Covenant, which is odd because you do spend an entire mission flying around in a city, but all you really see out of that is one ship being shot down and you hear people in it, but you don't really see anything. What I expected to see was a tragedy on the lines of, say, what Spec Ops: The Line did. I think what I'm saying is that with a story like Reach, your expectations are set so high, and I don't think the game really matched what could happen out of this situation. What I will say is that Halo Reach easily has my favorite art style in the entire franchise. This game just looks really good. Next up is, again, kind of difficult to rank. I have two games right next to each other, but I think I would have to place Halo Combat Evolved here. This is really difficult because Halo Combat Evolved genuinely has some of the best levels in Halo history, but it also has some of the worst. Combat Evolved truly is a great introduction to Halo's universe. It's got likable characters, a story that's easy to understand, a gameplay loop that is simple yet deep enough to be enjoyable for long periods of time. So then why is it not higher? Well, the main reason is because it's just very, very hit or miss. Some levels, like the Silent Cartographer, can be argued as the best level in the entire franchise. And then some levels, specifically the library, I can argue for being objectively the worst. Occasionally, I see people trying to defend the library, saying that it matches the dreary tone of an enemy like the Flood and it fits what they're trying to do. You're looking way too far into this. Even Bungie said this level was awful.
This is grueling to watch, even with all the cheats.
Yes.
Well, this is also a great example of we didn't know how to like self-produce. Be like, hey, this is just too long. Like, the mission feels over like 45 minutes ago.
Story and lore does not trump gameplay. Gameplay comes above all else, and the gameplay in the library is truly awful. Really, the biggest problem with Combat Evolved is that the second half of the game is not very good. Combat Evolved is fantastic right up until that awesome reveal of the Flood, and then it goes downhill. Again, the library is truly the worst level in all of Halo. And then the levels after that are just playing through the levels you've already played through, but backwards, and now there's the Flood. Great, there's an enemy that actively makes the game less fun on levels I've already played before. In its defense, it does redeem itself with the Maw being one of the best levels in the entire game, if not the best. And the Warthog run is iconic, so this is a very difficult game to rank. I love Combat Evolved, but I think I have to put it a little bit lower just because of its downsides. The game I would put just above it, barely above it, is Halo Infinite. Finally, 343 got the campaign right. Turning Halo into an open world game on paper sounds like it would be boring. In execution, this combat loop, added with a grappling hook, makes for some of the most addictive gameplay I've experienced in a very long time. And while this game isn't revolutionary as far as tech is concerned, the art style just makes it look so beautiful. On top of all of this, 343 finally figured out its writing. I won't spoil anything because the game is brand new, but I genuinely wanted to know more about these characters and what was going to happen. If you haven't played Infinite, it's great, I would really recommend playing it. But that only leaves two games left, Halo 2 and Halo 3. And this is really hard to decide. Halo 2 and 3 being so close for me is the reason I asked you guys to leave your list down below in the comments. I was really curious to see which one would win in most of the comments. In fact, I was struggling so much trying to decide which one I like more that I ran polls on both my Twitter and in my YouTube community tab. Over on Twitter, Halo 3 won with 55% of the votes. Over in my YouTube community tab, Halo 3 won with 64%. And it had a lot more votes overall. So it seems the general consensus is that people like Halo 3 more, but also still love Halo 2. I think one of my commenters put it best when he said, 3 is a better game, 2 is a better story. And I would have to agree with that, because the story in Halo 3 really is just finishing the story that Halo 2 ran out of time to complete. And Halo 2's tone is just so much more serious than the oorah let's go Marines UNSC style tone in Halo 3. This isn't to say Halo 3 doesn't get serious, but never quite to the levels of Halo 2. I mean, Halo 2 was the first time we really got to see the structure of the Covenant. This was the introduction to the Arbiter, and we got to play as an elite for the first time. And on a gameplay sense, it was the first time we ever got to dual wield, use a sword, and in general, it just felt like a totally different game from Halo Combat Evolved, and not necessarily in a bad way. With that said, Halo 2 has the same problem that Halo Combat Evolved has. Man, the quality and fun levels are all over the place. Halo 2 has some of the best levels. I particularly love the levels on Earth, but it also has some of the worst. If I ever have to play through Sacred Icon or Quarantine Zone again, I'm gonna motorboat a cactus. Halo 2 is also a bit buggy and clearly rushed. Halo 3, in contrast, is one of the most polished games I've ever played. It is shorter than Halo 2, but that's because all the content that was there is curated to an insane degree. When I think of Halo 3, I think of the battle where you have to fight 2 scarabs at once, and you can approach this in any way you want to. Player expression is something Halo 3 really emphasized, and this is true for pretty much the entire game. So all in all, again, I would have to agree with that comment. 2 is the better story, but 3 is the better game. Meaning Halo 2 is in second place, and the best Halo campaign is Halo 3. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's a little bit different from what I usually do. If you did enjoy it, consider liking the video, and if you're new here, consider subscribing. I want to give a big thanks to those of you that joined me over on Twitch. I did stream all of the Halo games. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Jarek4GamingDragon. If you subscribe over on Twitch, you get to see my videos literally weeks ahead of time. Of course, I would like to give a thanks to my sponsor, NordVPN, and also a big thanks goes to you for watching this video.